multifamily residential where you can't really get anywhere from them that are in the Old Dixie or US 1 corridor, but for the most part, you get to a lot of places. So, why low-speed vehicles? Why become a low-speed vehicle-friendly community? Now, there isn't a lot of data on this, and there's not a lot of articles. So some of the things that I found were kind of from the golf cart industry that was trying to hype up low-speed vehicles. So take some of it with a grain of salt. I found an article titled "The Rise of Cart-Friendly Neighborhoods," which was kind of put out by an industry publication. It did say that communities that have strong low-speed vehicle or golf cart infrastructure experience property value increases between 5 and 15% because they improve mobility, connectivity, and social interaction, and people want to live in places where you can do that. Golf cart options feature noted residents in golf cart friendly communities report higher neighborhood satisfaction because people tend to talk to each other more in a golf cart than a car, right? If your neighbor's driving by in a low-speed vehicle and you see them going by, it's much easier to flag them down and say, hey, come talk, than if they're in a car. This is opinion, but I think low-speed vehicles would make residents more likely to support local businesses in Tequesta rather than drive far away. So if you could take your golf cart and you knew that you could park it at Gallery Grill and grab a dinner with your family, and it was a nice night, that might be more appealing for someone to drive their low-speed vehicle there rather than maybe hop in a car and drive to Jupiter. So that's my opinion, but I think it would make our residents more likely to go, buy a coffee at a local business or support their local businesses. Also, according to Stanford Low Speed Vehicle Report, communities that adopt LSVs for short trips can reduce vehicle-related greenhouse gas emissions by 10 to 20% compared to auto-dependent suburbs. And that's because the low-speed vehicle uses roughly 5 to 10% of the energy of a standard gasoline car mile travel, of course, because they're electric. Also, something that you don't really think about, but low-speed vehicles do cost less pavement wear and tear over the long term because they're lighter, and that does, over the long term, save a little bit of money on roadway maintenance costs. Drivers tend to be more alert and courteous in mixed-speed environments where low-speed vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists are involved. So it could have the effect of making it a little bit more of a pedestrian-friendly community in a place where maybe people aren't flying through. So it might make it safer for kids and everyone to kind of play outside. And low-speed vehicle-friendly communities are part of the local culture. Colorful, customized carts are used in parades and community events. If you've ever been to the Villages, everyone there. I know Molly, you've got family there. A lot of people have souped-up low-speed vehicles, and it kind of becomes a source of pride, and so that's always kind of a fun thing that they do. Low-speed vehicle-friendly towns often market themselves as kind of eco-conscious or quaint destinations, appealing to visitors looking for a small-town experience. It does create a little bit of kind of a resort-type feel in the community. And here's a few examples of low-speed vehicles. I'm sure you've seen them all. Sometimes they're two-seaters. Sometimes they can be 4 or 6-seaters. Sometimes they can have the seats in the back facing backwards. But a lot of times they're just like a car. You've got seat belts. You've got armrests. Again, here's a souped-up one that looks like a Hummer or something. And if you go to the Villages, there are a lot of people that have these, like Cadillac ones and kind of souped up different ones from actual car makers. Here's one, disregard the University of Miami on there, but that's another kind of souped up one. And then here's kind of more of a futuristic modern one that looks it's pretty sleek and slick. And then if you've ever been in the Jupiter Inlet Village area, you've probably seen Zeeks. So they can also be used kind of for transportation purposes. And I know the town of Jupiter, I know at one point was subsidizing this partially. I don't know if they still are or not, but it's a nice service and helps support the local businesses there. So some low-speed vehicle-friendly communities in Florida. I'm just going to use 2 examples that I'm familiar with. The first one is the Villages. Everyone drives their low-speed vehicles everywhere there. The elderly folks and the retirees that live there love it. It's a great, factor of quality of life there. My wife's grandma lives there, so I've spent a ton of time there, and it's a fun environment. Here's another example. So here's a St. Patrick's Day parade where everyone, decorates their low-speed vehicle and drives around the urban area. And then another one is Nocatee. It's a suburb of Jacksonville. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with it, but it's a new community, but it's a really desirable place for families to live between St. Augustine and Jacksonville. It's a master planned community. It's a very golf cart friendly community. I've got a lot of friends there. They drive their kids to school every day in the cart. They go to the water park or the pools there in the park. They take their kids to sporting events in the low-speed vehicle. So it becomes kind of ingrained in the community. And it was named the best place in Florida to raise a family in 2023. I disagree with that. Obviously, to Quest it is, but I think being a low-speed vehicle-friendly community, obviously, I think did factor into that. And they have a huge 4th of July golf cart parade that has hundreds, maybe even thousands of golf carts, which is kind of another fun thing they do. So how can we incentivize low-speed vehicles? So the recommendation was to create a policy that allows developments to receive parking reductions or credits when they provide designated parking spaces for golf carts and other low-speed vehicles, which can incentivize the use of sustainable, space-efficient modes of transportation and reduce the footprint of traditional surface parking. So the mobility plan states that both Stewart and North Palm allow golf cart or low-speed vehicles to count towards required parking minimums. I did put that in North Palm Beach Code when I worked there, and I'll show you an example of how we put that into practice. One thing, I think you guys all did receive an email about this, and the resident in the email stated that there was no interest in adding low-speed vehicle and golf cart parking from residents during mobility plan outreach. That's a little bit of a misnomer. What we did is during the public outreach, there were a lot of pictures of different transportation-related features, and then you were given a green dot or a red dot, or maybe I think it was 3 green dots for your top 3 choices, and then red dots for anything you didn't like. And so nobody put their green dots on there because it's one of those things where it may not be in your top 3 most exciting things, but it might be your number 5 thing or your number 7 thing. And it was also called multimodal parking. So it included golf cart parking and bicycle parking. So, I think everyone would agree it's good to have bicycle parking when in commercial developments, right? And so I think it was just a little bit of a misnomer there by saying that it wasn't something that the residents were interested in during the mobility plan. It just wasn't a top priority. 2 of the priorities that did get a lot of votes, however, were more parks and open space and outdoor seating, which, funny enough, outdoor seating especially is something that can be enhanced through low-speed vehicle parking. And I will show you in some pictures how that can happen. And how does that work? Because the typical car takes 10 by 18 for a parking space, and that's actually a code requirement at Tequesta. So the typical golf cart or low-speed vehicle parking is anywhere from 5 to 6 feet wide and 8 to 10 feet long. So using 5-foot widths and 10-foot depth, a typical 10 regular car space wide layout can yield 20 golf cart spaces. And 10 is kind of the common number of spaces that you'd have in a row in a commercial project. That's the max you can have without having to have a landscape strip on the outside of it. So it would be pretty common for there to be a lot of strips of 10 different parking spaces together in our commercial developments. The other interesting thing there is because the spaces are less deep, you would actually end up getting 800 square feet of saved space because they're not as deep, right? There's also a shorter turn radius, a back out radius or back in radius on golf carts. So if you ever actually had 2 of them next to each other, you could have a more narrow driveway width as well. So allowing golf cart parking to count for some required parking spaces can allow development to have more room for green space, outdoor seating, stormwater retention, and other features, and can reduce the amount of impervious surface in a project. All right, so here's an example in practice. Frigates in North Palm Beach. Not sure if anyone's ever been there. It's a popular waterfront dining restaurant. They have quite a bit of outdoor seating, and especially this time of year, that's where people want to hang out. You don't want to go to a waterfront restaurant and sit inside, just like at Utiki or some of our restaurants around here. So there was a lot of demand to add additional outdoor seating. However, they were maxed out on parking and didn't have enough parking for North Palm to actually allow that expansion. So the owner was able to find an area where you could put 5 golf cart and low-speed vehicle spaces there, where there was, I think, only 1 or 2 car spaces before. He did an interesting kind of layout of that, and that enabled the expansion of the outdoor seating. So if you look at the very bottom of that picture, there's 2 green umbrellas right on the waterfront. There was a little kind of overhang over the water, and there's now, I think, 2 or 3 more, maybe 4 more dining tables there. So that's kind of an example of how it helped a small business in practice. I think that's the only one that's actually utilized at North Palm, but that was a good example. I think there's a few opportunities here in Tequesta. That the email you received said this is going to just lead to benefits for big developers, but really I think in practice it's would be used for small businesses and some of our small developments. So Gallery Square North, I've talked to the owner there and the person that's representing them right now. As you recall, they did conceptual to enclose the old drive-through there. During that process, I think they do want to look at adding low-speed vehicles to that. I think it's a perfect location in the village to actually draw low-speed vehicles in based on where it's located. And so there's an opportunity there where they could convert some spaces, either these ones on Seabrook or perhaps even in the main shopping area or main parking area. And that could allow them to, again, help them enclose the drive-through there, possibly add another 2nd-story space. I know a few years ago they looked into doing that. I'm sure Lighthouse Arts Center or maybe Danny Kays or somebody else would want to expand a little bit of a 2nd-story addition here and there. Could lead to just an expansion of another local small business. Another opportunity is Gallery Square South. They have this kind of green space retention area there. If they were able to convert some of their parking to low-speed vehicle parking or find some more efficiencies there, it could let them expand into that area and maybe add some outdoor seating there, maybe even do a small expansion of the building to grow one of the small businesses there. And again, perfect location for access for low-speed vehicles. Another one is Village Square. As I mentioned, you can drive across Tequesta Drive, so you can get there from virtually anywhere in the village. Here's a great example. So the Greek restaurant there has outdoor seating, and it's immediately next to parking spaces. And as you know, half the population parks backwards, so you got a truck backing in while you're trying to eat your Greek food. So you could actually convert the 3 parking spaces there to 6 low-speed vehicle parking spaces, and because of that 8 feet of less of depth I mentioned earlier, you could actually pick up 8 feet of buildable area that you could encroach into those parking spaces. So you could probably expand the outdoor seating out a little bit. You could definitely add some green space, ideally some sort of landscape screening, so that the people actually that are eating there actually feel some separation from the parking lot. Same thing at Hog Snappers. I mean, Hog Snappers is it's one of my favorite restaurants. I love the place, but the outdoor seating there is not the most desirable. It's not up to the level of the restaurant is. Again, I'm sure they would love to be able to, encroach out 8 feet further into that parking lot. And again, all it takes is 3 parking spaces, and you could add six low-speed vehicle spaces right there in front of Hog Snappers. And if you had a low-speed vehicle and knew that there was low-speed vehicle parking, I think you'd be more likely to drive it there, knowing that there's low-speed vehicle parking available. Mood and Tequesta Table, same thing. Their outdoor seating area there, I'm sure they would love to be able to put some additional green space, landscaping out there, or more room for seats in that area. So there's some opportunities that you can pick up there, and really in a lot of other places throughout the village. So draft code language, this is the underlined things are additions that I put in from the North Palm Beach Code. So like I said, I drafted the North Palm Beach Code, and now that I'm here at the village and I've thought about it a little bit more, I think there's some things we could do to actually improve the language. So the draft code language I would propose would be that within commercial or mixed-use projects, the village council may, not shall, allow golf cart or low-speed vehicle parking spaces to be counted as one space. And that would have to be done through the site plan approval process. So anytime someone was converting a parking space to a low-speed vehicle parking, it'd be a minor site plan modification that would be coming into village council for approval. They would have to meet those dimensions, like I mentioned, 5 feet by 10 feet, and the property owner would have to demonstrate that golf carts or low-speed vehicles are able to access the property from residential properties. So in the instance of the Publix Plaza, you really can't get there from too many places. So if that property owner were to come in and propose this, the village council could say, we don't think that this would actually be used, and we therefore are not going to approve it. But in like the Gallery Square examples, I think there's, they could probably provide some good evidence there. And then also, it would say up to 10% of a vehicle's or a development's required parking spaces may be met by low-speed vehicle parking. So if they were required to provide 100 spaces, they could only provide up to 10 low-speed vehicle spaces. So you wouldn't have a situation where they're just filling the entire parking lot up with low-speed vehicles. And in a dream environment where the village becomes something like the Village is, where everyone's driving low-speed vehicles, we can always come back and say, hey, there's the low-speed vehicle spaces are getting filled up. We think we need to up this to 15% or 20%. There's always an opportunity to do that. So other recommendations for low-speed vehicle parking, I think there's maybe an opportunity to provide low-speed vehicle parking in village facilities like parks. As I mentioned, there's some efficiencies there where you can convert regular spaces to low-speed vehicle spaces. So maybe over on Dover or somewhere near Constitution Park, there's an opportunity. Maybe some other places throughout the village. Perhaps install a little bit of street signage throughout the village indicating permitted low-speed vehicle routes. Because we wouldn't want to do sign clutter, we would ideally just put it on an existing sign. So you might have the speed limit sign, and you might have that right under there. I think a big thing we could do is just educating the village residents on what a low-speed vehicle is and where they can operate. That map I showed you, I think we could just draft an article up, put that map in smoke signals and social media, and kind of tell residents, hey, did you know you could do this? And I think that could lead to a lot of demand. And also, one thing I failed to mention, the country club, they've submitted their application for redevelopment. They've got somewhere in the ballpark of, I think, 45 golf cart low-speed vehicle spaces there for people. So they clearly know that people are driving low-speed vehicles in the village. They clearly are expecting a lot of people to visit the country club. They know will continue to use low-speed vehicles to visit there. In the future, if we were to become a big low-speed vehicle community, we could do some of those holiday type events. And then one thing I think could be interesting, especially as the technology improves and you get some of those nice designs, is we could start using low-speed vehicles in municipal operations like parks, public works, utilities, the police department, the village manager. I was just talking to Jeremy today about how wouldn't it be great if he had a special village manager low-speed vehicle that was kind of open, and he would just drive around the village once a month, and the residents, it would say village manager, and the residents could flag him down and say, hey Jeremy. He's laughing. I've got a swale that's not functioning properly, or whatever the buzzword of the day is. So that's a thought. Here's some examples of some of those in practice. So here's like a low-speed vehicle work truck. Obviously that wouldn't take up as much gas. It'd be pretty easy to maintain, and it might be fun for some of the employees to have. It might be easier too for just the solo operator to just drive one of those around. And so that's my presentation. I'm happy to, if you have any suggestions or ideas that I haven't thought about, open to any suggestions, but would like to get some buy-in on that code language and whether or not you'd be open to us putting that into our other code updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Council, open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool kind of, say, forward-thinking concept, although a lot of places are already doing stuff like this. But there are so many people within the village that own golf carts, a lot of which aren't street legal. I recognize that. But I think it would be great if we saw more low-speed vehicles, assuming people operated them safely and all that fun stuff, which you could say the same for cars. But so question, like just hog snappers, for instance, or that shopping center, like pretty rough parking there sometimes. So I think obviously those spots, those are dedicated for golf carts. So if no one can if you're in a car, they wouldn't fit a regular car, I assume.
Correct.
Okay. So like right now, if someone went to hog snappers with their low-speed vehicle, where would they just have to take a regular parking space?
They take up an entire parking space. So it's like when you see someone with a motorcycle in a parking space,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, geez.
Yeah,
right?
hate
So-
that. Okay. Can you put the ordinance language back up?
Yeah.
Quick. Possibly make it, there we go. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, getting old here.
Same.
Well,
That's right behind us too, but all right. So yeah, there we go.
that's better.
One space, Friday, meet the minimum. What's the standard dimensions of a regular parking space?
It's 10 by 18.
10 by 18. The property owner. Okay. I mean, so yeah, I think it gives council a good deal of flexibility on like whether or not these. I think you have the may, which is helpful, but then you also they'd have to demonstrate that golf carts or low-speed vehicles are able to access. So that's only so many areas, like you said. I mean, I'm fine with it. I like it. I have a golf cart, but it's not a low-speed vehicle. But I think I agree with everything you said. I think we need to encourage our residents to visit all of our locally owned restaurants, businesses, and maybe if we did this and marketed it in a way that encouraged people to do it and did some fun stuff. And I think it just helps promote that kind of community environment and the vibe that I think most of us, including myself, would love to quest at. That's why we're here. So I don't, just reading it now, I don't have any suggestions of anything I would change on it, but I think it's a good concept.
Sorry. County Line Road, do we know what the miles per hour that is?
35.
Speed limit? Is it 35?
Yep.
So technically you could take it on County Line?
You could technically, from the country club, go all the way county line, Riverside.
But then you
to
get
county.
stuck when you get to Old Dixie
You have to
or
come.
US 1.
Yeah, you can cross Old Dixie. You just can't go on Old Dixie.
I know, but you couldn't go south on it technically by law to get to Publix.
Correct, but you could get to the park that way.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just looking for the little obstacles. I don't hate this, and it's very clear that many people have low-speed vehicles. It is very true, like you said. A lot of them aren't technically street legal, and I know PD encourages, but it's a process. These vehicles are not cheap,
No.
so
Looking at them.
I hesitate if we were to start encouraging developers to change the parking lots as an incentive, because for me that really limits residents' availability, as well as it's almost socially encouraging people to spend more money on a really expensive toy that you technically don't need in life. It's a want and it's a fun toy. My other concern that you worded it to encourage residents to take their low-speed vehicles. I think we don't need to encourage them because they already do. Like when we go to events at Constitution, they show up in them. I see them at Publix already, so they're getting there. I would like to see us find a way to actually get the county or whoever it is, FDOT, to help us lower the speed limit on Old Dixie, because that would legally expand the actual accessibility where they could be going legally without getting in trouble. And I think that's more supportive to the businesses. Before I get on board with this draft code language to actually change it, and I'm not against it right now, I just don't see the need for it right now. I like to ask, is there a way we could do a pilot with, let's say, Hog Snappers shopping center, and those spaces you happen to mention in front of the Greek restaurant or anywhere else in that shopping center, if we just put little signs in front of those spots first that limit it to low-speed vehicles and see what the feedback is. My concern is, you mentioned motorcycle parking spots, and if you guys have been, which I know you have, when you run into parking lots that have funky shapes, they use those weird areas for compact parking, but sometimes the parking lot's packed and you just feel like, you're being discriminated against because you're in a bigger vehicle. And then handicap we need, which already take up a lot of front row spots. So my concern is if we start creating all these very specific type of parking spots, it's actually going to maybe create some disgruntled vibes. I'd rather see us try to find a way to test pilot this, put like little signs and see if it's, oh, hey, these are awesome, or gosh, these, I'd rather see us feel it out that way than start changing this like this first. But I don't know if we can kind of pick and choose. We can't do a public shopping center because legally they can't get there yet. You know, they do go there. Maybe we could try it like in where Gallery Grill is, kind of single out a couple parking spots and see what the vibe is, because they're singled out with a little sign before we start repainting and configuring. And then maybe one at Hog Snappers, maybe one at Home Goods. I'd rather just kind of feel out the vibe from residents, and they might come back like, oh, this is awesome. And maybe we even see factually more carts coming. And then that, for me, gives me more factual data that this would be favored instead of just start going down the road with it. Does that make sense? Okay, I just don't know how that goes about if we were to do like a pilot program to test it as a village. So I'll let you guys figure that one out.
Thanks, Jay. I agree with all the advantages of low-speed vehicle. I think all those things are positive. But what I have seen, and my biggest concern, is that it is a low-speed vehicle. However, it is not treated like a vehicle in the eyes of an adult that allows their 13 or 14-year-old to see it. So my concern is it puts more pressure. If we create more opportunity, it puts more pressure on our police department to do that, because I can tell you this. Yesterday, I walked the neighborhoods getting my petition signatures, and I spoke with no less than 100 homes. The single biggest concern is e-bikes, golf carts, and LSVs. And that's on this side of the village as well. Because and as I'm having a conversation with one, a family was going down the road on the cell phone, no seatbelts, no nothing, baby on the lap. That's my concern, is that it is a vehicle. It is a small vehicle that is not treated like a vehicle. And that's on the adults in the home to do that. And I still see more and more 12, 13, 14-year-old kids. And I had a conversation on the way here where you've seen them bail. They're not even stopped, and 4 kids go. So number one, my first concern is just the safety of it, and not encouraging more, because people are going to buy it. If they want it, they're going to buy it, and they're going to let inexperienced drivers drive it. But just the concern of that and the placement within a parking lot, if we get to that, it cannot be anywhere near the front. I don't believe it should be in its own separated. The best example was across the street, Gallery Grill, where Perk is, and those line of businesses. It's got to be separate, because the way the younger kids and even adults come boogieing in, and they haven't even hit stop yet, and they're bailing. And so I would hate to see kids that are doing it illegally bailing, going to the locals or something like that, or getting ice cream and falling out and causing damage. So my concern is just having them, have more access around the village. It concerns, because I don't think we're there yet from a public safety perspective. I think we're getting better on e-bikes, but I think now we're seeing it. I'm seeing people gravitate away from the e-bike and go more to the LSV. Just maybe it's coincidental, it's what I've seen. But getting to the language here, and so up to 10% of development's required parking spaces may be met by LSV. So say overall a parking lot needs 100 spots. So they can have 10 spots, which is really, so they're really only giving up, because it's almost a 2-for-1. You get 2 golf carts for 1. So you're really only giving up 5 spots.
Correct.
So then so you still have your same, but then you have more parking, correct? So you're going to have 95 or 90 plus. Do you get more or less? If you're going to get, say, using 100 spot example, if 10% or 10 spots, to get 10 spots, you're only giving up 5 regular spots. So now are we over parking it now?
Well,
at 105 spots?
Like typically, like in the frigates example I used, it was used to be able to get them to expand it, right? So they added additional square footage on, and so then it became the same number of, or more parking spaces were added for larger square footage, but with the same footprint of the original parking lot.
I see the intent of that to draw and drive more people there. In the Frigates example, they could probably fit 16 more people. There's 4 tables of 4 out there. They do that by adding that. What I wouldn't want to see happen is that I know it sounds like it's anti-business, but I don't want to see increased footprints of buildings because they're saving. They still need the 100 spots, and it's hard for me to imagine what that looks like in reality. I just use a 100 spot example, but like in the Hog Snappers Plaza, what's the overall, and that's not a footprint that you could expand, but I would hate for a new building, somebody to tear down and say, well, I can add another X amount of square foot because I'm going to have my 10% allotment of parking spots. I don't want to see bigger buildings at the sake of just having more low-speed vehicles. And I don't know if those two can mutually coexist.
You could tie it to only existing commercial plazas, right? So you could say that it's only used when an existing commercial plaza wants to add outdoor seating or additional green space. It could be done. So that way, if a new developer is coming in, like let's say Paradise Park, they wouldn't be able to come in and do this. It would only be someone retrofitting so that Hog Snappers could add more outdoor seating, or Perk could add outdoor seating, or something.
Yeah, because I wouldn't want to see a footprint be expanded, and I understand the Frigates example and what that did for that individual business. But my concern is having bigger footprints at the sake of allowing more low-speed vehicles, and somebody saying, well, yeah, I can demonstrate that they have access, they can get there. But if it's really not going to ever materialize, now do we have a bigger footprint of a building that wouldn't have happened before? And if somebody were to save space in a parking spot, in a parking lot, say Gallery Grill, and they were able, by adding 10 spots, that really you're only giving up 5. Say if they gave up 10 spots and they gave 10 to get 10 low speed, can we require any available spot that's left over be dedicated to green space or open space? Just so, again, just trying to avoid having a footprint, having an L-shaped building, and all of a sudden we have a little jut coming out. If they go to Gallery Square next to Wine Proxy and they close that in, and by adding low-speed vehicle parking, I don't want to see another extension come out of there just because of that. So if there's any space available, can we require that, or have staff consider, can we make that green space or open space? I don't want it to become a shed, or I don't want it to become something else because I created more space because I added more LSVs, but now I've got a space for something else. And I don't want it to destroy the fabric of what we have.
Sure.
And can we limit it to just a section? Not have it anywhere on US 1. Maybe have it just at I call our downtown, Seabrook and Twester Drive area.
I thought about proposing that and having it be just west of the tracks or just west of Old Dixie. So if council wanted to, we could certainly do that, because I mean the Hog Snappers and Mood example, I think it could be helpful there, but I think it would make more sense in our over here in what you call our downtown and our neighborhood commercial area. And I think it's a more appropriate place for a low-speed vehicle to travel to rather than having to go across Old Dixie and to go across US 1.
Yeah, I don't want to keep beating the horse, but my 2 sources of heartburn are just the low-speed vehicle is not treated like a real vehicle. Mm-hmm. I don't think parents would let their 14-year-old drive a Jeep up to the Stop and Shop, but they don't mind getting in a low-speed vehicle, and I see it happen all the time because where I live. Mm-hmm. So that's a concern of mine. I think there's a huge safety concern. If it were to get to that position, I would really only be in favor if they were segregated somewhere else, like in a faraway, remote spot, so they're not interfering with other kids, because we're still going to have inexperienced drivers doing it. I just feel it might be the 16-year-old that's doing it. And then if there's any space that's created, like my last question was, what can we do? I don't want to expand a building. I understand the intent behind that, but if we're trying to encourage low-speed vehicle, we're trying to encourage growth. So if we have low-speed vehicles just to get more people to support the existing businesses, if any amount of space is gained, I'd like to see that or entertain something to make it green space, make it a parking island or something. I just don't want there to be another extension of the building going where there might have been parking spots were before. I think we're trying to encourage low-speed growth or low-speed vehicle growth, but I don't want to see physical asset growth. The actual building is what my concerns are. So those are that's where my heartburn is right now.
I think this is a good goal to work towards, but I do think we need to be a little bit more strategic about it, and with staff and council, really map it out a little bit more what it would look like. And like Councilmember Brandon said, like, do we do like a gradual rollout? Do we do a pilot program or something like that, just to kind of get the feel for what it could really look like? Because I have some of the same concerns that have already been stated. My biggest is, have we received any input from this from our police and fire departments? Because the public safety aspect, the traffic safety aspect, the enforcement of it, if we do increase the LSVs, how are we gonna plan for having them integrate more with standard automobiles? I have a real issue with them crossing US 1. You brought up the villages. I think I've been through that entire city, town, whatever, by golf cart. And I don't recall any major intersection crossing at the actual light. They have golf cart passovers. So you go like under the light. They have tunnels that go underground. So you're not actually crossing those busy intersections. If you have someone crossing US 1 onto Questa Drive and someone runs a red light, people drive 50, 55 on US 1, everyone in that LSV is probably gonna die. Could you even imagine? So I think crossing US 1 is a very, very bad idea. Well, I think it'd be great. Maybe one day we get, well, I don't want to say this because people will go up in arms, but you lower the speed limit on US 1 one day and it's safer, but you have one accident, someone running a red light, that could be a horrific, accident there. So that's a big concern. The child safety, I didn't see it in the presentation. Would car seats be required? Is that something we need to enforce? Because I agree, I see people just carrying, infants, toddlers, and one bump, one hit, you could drop the child. So there's too many questions. Like, it's a good goal to work towards, but I think we really need to be a lot more strategic about mapping out a program like this. The development side, I'm trying to understand it, because at the end of the day, the density is density,
Yeah.
The height's the height, the setbacks are the setbacks. So what are we looking at? You did mention a couple of existing buildings could expand, but what are we really looking at from how much they can expand? Because there's just, the code as it is sets a lot of parameters, so you're not going to have like bigger, taller, denser buildings like that. So I'd like to just really understand what that looks like. Like, if say this property took advantage of this, like they could add 200 more square feet, buildable square footage. We just need some more like examples or comparisons so we can kind of understand the development side, because I don't see it being that big of an issue just because of the other parameters in place that aren't going to change because of this code. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of like high level my initial thoughts. But again, I think it's a good goal to work towards. Maybe it's something we put on our strategic plan, and I think we have to do a little more research and mapping out what that would really look like. And again, maybe it's just more appropriate areas that we focus on. But I really want our police and fire departments to be part of the conversation, because they're going to be the ones enforcing it. They're the ones that'll be responding to any safety issues and accidents. So I would love their input as well.
Yeah, they've been involved. I've talked to Kurt Blanc about it quite a bit, and he's aware of it. One thing, is I think if you get more people using low-speed vehicles, I think you guys have talked about they're starting to expand a little bit. I think the more people that start using low-speed vehicles, the easier it is for the police department to actually be on top of it, right? Because if it's just a rogue person here or there, it's not really on the radar. They're not actively monitoring it. But if we were like the villages where there were low-speed vehicles just always out there, the police department would have it on their radar and would be constantly monitoring it. Of course, it'd be more work for them to have to do, but I think it's something that would make it more of a priority for the police department they'd be on top of it a lot more. But I can vet that more and talk to the police department a little bit more about that. one idea, back to Councilman Brandon's idea, we could do a test pilot. I've actually done something pretty similar in like downtown Jacksonville, which is like there's a thing called Parking Day. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it. They do it in downtown West Palm, but it's where communities are trying to take, it's more in like downtown areas where you're trying to take the public realm back from streets and create outdoor seating and park-like environments. So like on Clematis Street, that's kind of, Genesis led it to them kind of doing a road diet and expanding the outdoor seating. So in downtown Jacksonville, we used to do these little parklet testings where we would take an existing parking space, street parking space, and we'd convert it in an outdoor seating area and put.
Everyone Clematis did that, yeah.
Yeah. So we used to do something pretty similar with this group of planning friends I had in Jacksonville, and we could do a similar type of test project here where we'd have to find a user to do it. It sounds like the Hog Snappers Plaza wouldn't be the best, but I'm in talks with the Gallery Girl folks, so that would probably be the best one. I think the spaces on the west side maybe aren't as heavily used, so maybe they could be a good test run. So we could do that and maybe even have the village put it out there, partner with them and see how heavily they're used, see if there's any issues with doing that and if there's an appetite for it. Because to everyone's point, the last thing we want to do is to allow this to happen and the spaces to be unused, and then you've lost spaces for cars, right? So, but we may do this testing there, and people may do it like crazy, and you may see there's a big demand for it, and that the police department thinks it works fine, and so yeah, I think it's a great idea if council's on board with that.
Yeah,
we can do it.
I only bring that up. I fully agree with everything that was set up here. And I absolutely see the safety hazard of if they're scattered within the parking lot, so if we can find a way to group them. But my suggestion of the compromise before we ever push something like that through that language, a sign, a small temporary sign is so much easier to try out than starting to paint things and reconfigure. And I just, knowing our residents, I don't even think their village is maybe 50% owned LSP. So again, I'm trying to look at the mass of what it would be used, but I fully agree with everything that was set up here, especially the safety hazards, and maybe considering just west of the railroad tracks as well. I just know they already go to Publix and stuff, whether they're legally supposed to or not, but
I've never seen that.
again, maybe that's an encouragement we remind them, but
Sorry.
no, you go ahead.
I had always just maybe wrongfully assumed, but as far as the child seat belts, age of driving, it's the same for a vehicle, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
They don't do it though.
Yeah, but that's an enforcement
Yeah, it's an enforcement
issue,
issue,
not
yeah. Laws get
that's like
broken
me letting
every day.
if I had a 12-year-old kid drive a car, same thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's actually even easier to see them. So to me, that's an enforcement issue, not yes, they're dangerous. I get it. But at the end of the day, if there's a baby in it, they should be in a child seat. And so to me, I think there are safety issues with golf carts, but I think there's safety issues with just about anything. Just following the laws and enforcing the laws is the bigger issue.
Jay, I'm sorry.
That's it.
Have we had building owners call, like from that side, from the property owner? Have we had people call and say, hey, why can't I get, or how do I get LSV parking? Or are we trying to get ahead and create the demand?
So, I mean, like I said, the country club, they're adding, I think it's something like 46 spaces. They're not going to be able to count those towards their required parking, which I think they're fine with, but they know that there's a demand. I've spoken with Eric, who owns Gallery Grill, and the company that's representing him on his expansion, and they like the idea, and they're not begging for it, but they like the opportunity. I just spoke with the owner, the people that have 150 Tequesta Drive under contract this morning. They're coming to the next council meeting with a conceptual, and asked them, I said, hey, I'm talking about low speed vehicles, would you guys be interested in doing that? And they said, yeah, I mean, they only have something like 70 spaces there, but they were open to doing 5 spaces there. So to answer your question, nobody's begging for it, but I think it's also one of those things where if you put it out there and you work with them and you say, hey, to Gallery Square, the other one, hey, you could maybe do something in the back there with this. Mm-hmm. Something that they maybe hadn't even considered.
I will say, for me personally, I like that currently our parking spots all share the same size because they're very versatile. And heaven forbid, let's say 10, 15 years, the state does something against LSVs, and then what do? How do you revert back? So, like right now, I have no problem the way it is because you can use them. But if we're looking for resident data and response, that's why I was thinking maybe the compromise is just like put some signs and just feel that temperature. Like if people get annoyed by it, is it creating clusters of confusion and safety hazards? So I still kind of stick with that, but for me personally, I don't even see a problem because I go by Perk and sometimes it's a full line of LSVs and sometimes it's all cars.
Yeah, and I know at, so again, I'll compare the villages just because of my experience there, but a lot of the Publix plazas don't have the golf cart parking, and they park side by side. I don't know how big their parking stalls are there, but yeah, I mean, you'll just see it's like tons of, normal size parking stalls, and they park like 2 in a stall. So I mean, we just encourage that. And then also, involving police and fire, I would like to know maybe from some of these golf cart communities what the statistics are with DUIs and accidents with people that are under the influence, because I know there is that false sense of security. It's known in the villages, right? People partake all the time in adult beverages and go drive, and there's accidents there and incidents there because of that. Because I think people just have that, well, I'm not driving a real car, so it's okay. So I'd like some data on there. Like, is there an increase in that if you're in a golf cart versus a normal automobile? Is it the same? Again, I think like this is a great initial, presentation for feedback. I think there's been a lot of questions and comments, and maybe you can just work on some of that data and examples, and like the development question, like what does that really look like? How can they really expand? And maybe bring it back to us again, and again, kind of map it out, maybe how it will be rolled out, certain areas maybe to focus on, that kind of stuff, and we can revisit it.
Sure.
Okay. Any other council comment before I take public comment?
No, ma'am.
Last comment, I think you would might be beneficial to get the temperature of a couple of the houses of worship that would, like in this corner, Good Shepherd Family Church, on the other side of the bridge, First Pres. Just have they considered it? Do they have people saying, hey, are they experiencing golf cart, LSV, or I guess LSV really for all the 3 of the churches? Just curious to that. Do they feel that would maybe be beneficial to them, or like, oh gosh, no, we don't want it at all because of an elderly population that maybe worship there? So just kind of curious with that, because if we're looking at maybe in the heart of Tequesta, what are the, Perk is great, but I think Perk is the ones where I've seen kids sitting on mom's lap on the way.
Yeah.
So just, I don't know, it's a tough issue. Seems like it should be simple, but it's got a lot of tentacles.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's it.
All right, any public comment? Ms. Watkins?
Good evening, everybody. Pat Watkins, 167 River Drive. I'm going to apologize in advance for jumping around. I've been taking notes as you all say your thing here. First and foremost, overall, I would remind us all of the size of the village that we're dealing with. Okay, we're not a big municipality. We have an X number of plazas or other businesses to consider in this. Jay mentioned about expanding seating and green space in these plazas. That would be up to the plaza owner, which is obviously an expense. It may or may not be done, right? You're triggering a competition for parking spaces out of the blocks. And the first thing that came to my mind is both Remembrance Park and the rec center. You already have a limited amount of parking there. If you're going to devote parking now to these vehicles, obviously they're popular, I've got that, but for every parking spot you take away, there's a car gone as well, and how many people would use it one way or the other. The country club, obviously, it's a golf club. They're going to need a whole lot of, that's logic, right? That doesn't even factor into this in my mind. I'm thinking about the developments. We've had a lot of issues lately, particularly with one property trying to be developed. If I'm the developer, and let's say it's condos or townhomes, normally with a 2 or 3 bedroom development like that, you would be expected to have 2 parking places. So if now you're going to add on this site any amount of the smaller vehicles, am I going to give up one of my regular car spots in order to have a half a spot technically for this other vehicle? Or am I going to be allowed to allow 2 cars per unit plus possibly the second? I just think it's another complication that's coming down the pike. And this has to be a policing nightmare. Because right now, I can tell you, based on my neighborhood alone, people don't listen. Not only do we have them holding the babies, I've even seen the moms jogging on the road with the little guy driving the golf cart with the littler guy in the cart. Now, is that an adult problem? Yes, but it does happen. And I just see the whole thing as a safety nightmare, especially if you can allow them to cross Old Dixie and US 1. I think it's just something. I realize I've hit advanced age, but this just worries the heart out of me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Julie?
Julie Beaumont, 94 Fair Duties. Just a suggestion, what Pat was saying, we probably ought to put it in our newsletter, what the real rules of the road are. I assumed road legal golf carts, or LSVs, were allowed everywhere and anywhere because they were street legal. If this isn't true, I mean, I'd love to know what the real rules are for all of them. Where, how, and that was really interesting that you have to have a car seat with it. I mean, none of them do. I don't think I've ever seen one. So maybe we could, I don't know, do some type of informative thing to the public. That would be really helpful to all of us, I think. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Jay. We'll move on to item number 2, discuss Remembrance Park brick donation, dedication criteria, and process. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mayor. At the November 14, 2024 regular council meeting, the village council approved the brick donation policy. To date, we have engraved and installed 75 bricks at Remembrance Park site. As part of the initial dedication, the site has 900 bricks that we could install. At the November council approved the donation from the Paterno family for a plaque to be installed in honor of Mr. Paterno and his service to the village. Council requests an item for discussion to be considered at a workshop to address future donations or dedications at Remembrance Park. As part of this backup, you have a draft policy which will include employee service recognition bricks, council member service recognition bricks, special dedications and memorial plaques, and administration of the policy, and record keeping and public recognition. Just a quick summary of the employee service recognition bricks: any full-time employee to Quest employee who retires in good standing after 20 or more years, or an employee who retires in good standing after 10 or more years in service as a director shall be eligible for a donated commemorative brick. And then number 2 is the council member service recognition. Any council member who completes at least 3 full terms of service shall be eligible to receive a brick. And then special dedications memorial, individuals who have made significant lasting impact on the village of Tequesta. So those criteria: individuals who have rendered extraordinary public service, leadership, and contributions significantly advancing the village mission, history, or community well-being. The recognition may be initiated by the village council, village manager, or through a formal request from residents, families, or community organizations. Further continues with just the approval process, the design, and then the funding mechanisms for any or all of those. With that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jeremy. Council, open up for discussion.
Someone else can start.
My general question is, we don't keep the brick sale open all the time. It just has certain seasons that it's opened. Is that right?
Yeah, we're gonna do it I think we do it like twice a year, just so we're not like one person comes in and gets a brick and then we run out and we'll do them in groups to make it be easier on staff for us.
But is that the plan though, to each year kind of keep it consistent? Like in the spring, I'm just using an example, like spring and then fall, like just kind of keep it consistent. So if someone does randomly come in between those times, staff can say, hey, we'll take your application. We have your signed off signature and what you want it to look like. But it'll go on the next batch, kind of, so to speak.
100%, yep.
Okay, just checking.
Yep.
But we are gonna do that yearly.
I think we're doing twice a year. We'll open it up. Yeah.
And I see we have up to 900 bricks and we've only sold 75.
Right. It was kind of part of the original push that we made. I know the historians had 20 or so. I can't remember the exact number. And then we had a number of residents that participated at the very beginning. So we'll see what I think we're about ready to open it up again. I can't remember the date, but we'll see how. But there's plenty of room out there for more bricks.
I'm just probably saying we have plenty of room, and then do we still do bricks here at Village Hall as well for certain things?
Yeah, I mean,
So we have plenty of brick space
We've only
in
had
Village.
2 here at Village Hall in 6 years since
Yeah, so we have plenty of brick space, correct?
Yeah.
All around. Okay.
Yep.
All right, that's it for now.
I have nothing.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I think it's,
Just two quick ones. Under funding, it says memorial plaques may be donated by families, organizations, or the village. So I guess the organizations, like what's an organization? I mean, are there any limits on that or parameters for organizations? They have to be local? Could an organization from out of state?
So like an example that I just thought of, so you got the Friends of Public Safety. If that was an organization they want to donate for a veteran of Tequesta, they can come in and donate. I mean, I think of them as like an organization, but it still has to go through this process where I'll vet it and then council has to approve it.
Okay, yeah, the organization, I don't know if we should put parameters that needs to be local or, I don't know, within the state or something. That seemed a little odd. And then my only other question, says the village reserves the right to relocate or remove plaques or bricks due to park redesign, safety, or maintenance needs. And there's the donation policy. Donation policy is not attached. I didn't read it, but it's completely like at our own discretion. So if the park was getting too crowded with those, even though it's not technically a park redesign or safety or maintenance need, if we think they're getting too crowded, could it be removed at our own discretion?
Yeah, once it's donated, it becomes a village property. So we have the ability to do, at that point, remove it, relocate it, not put it back. I mean, we have that ability. It's our property at that point.
Okay, that works. Yeah, I mean, the organization, I mean, is everyone fine with that just being listed with no parameters on it for it being like a local or state? And then it just, is that up to council to decide when it comes before us?
I think so, because
Okay.
I'm trying to think of an example, but like there'd be somebody that would be here, like maybe was here for 50 years or something and retired, joined the Elks Lodge or something up there, and he's like, "No, I really want to. I'm gonna be buried up here, but I want to be remembered back in Tequesta." So I don't want to. Would hate to limit what type of organization, but I
That's
think
kind of where my head's at too. I'm thinking of like
Ultimately-
Leave With Me, we got American Legion, there's a couple others like,
ultimately it's going to be vetted by the village manager and then by council. I think if it's some issue of moral turpitude or something like that, I think we could stand up and say we just don't agree with that. But, so I wouldn't want to put limitations on what organization or what type of organization.
Oh, I just meant like it seemed like an organization from like Ohio could, but I meant more like should it just be local or with something in the state? Because organization, like what if we get like something from out of state, some random organization? Again, just leave it up to council, fine. Like I said, it was that was the only thing that I was like, well, maybe it should be at least like kept to local or county or state and not, any organization in the U.S. could come and donate something, so. But that's fine, I just wanted to bring it up, we can leave it.
Good
as
point,
is.
but I mean, I'm okay with the council and staff vetting it, the manager, kind of ferreting out anything that might be, doesn't make sense.
Okay, sounds good. Any public comment? Nope. Okay, moving on, agenda item 3, utilities permit update. Allison.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Allison Felsberg, Utilities Deputy Director. And I am pleased tonight to be providing you with an update on our Utilities Department. So through this presentation, I'll just touch on some of our capital and daily operations of our various divisions, including stormwater, production, distribution, and customer service and billing. So starting off with stormwater capital projects, some 3 major projects we have going on: Dover Ditch Living Shoreline, swale reclamation, and then stormwater pipelining. Dover Ditch Living Shoreline, I'm sure you've heard plenty of, but it's a 50% FDP grant funded project. The remaining 50% is a shared cost between the town of Jupiter and the village. This contract has been underway. It's about 50% complete now. That picture in the top right is the canal before this project began. Below that is the conceptual of what it should look like after. The bottom 2 pictures on the right and middle, those are in progress pictures of the bank stabilization on the Village of Tequesta portion of the ditch. So you can see them towing in that filter fabric, adding the riprap. And then the picture on the left is the finished Village of Tequesta side. Obviously there will be sod on the actual bank of it, but then that black filter fabric you see, there will be plants to incorporate that living shoreline, but they can't be planted until after December 15th, just due to the king tides and making sure that they stay alive. So that project is underway. It's coming along nicely. Swale reclamation. Swales are crucial to our stormwater management and treatment throughout the village. For FY26, we do plan on going to Dover Circle, Garden Street, and North Dover Road. The majority of these projects are performed in-house. We do believe that with Garden Street, we may have to work with a contractor just because it's a little bit more intensive than what our guys can handle with the amount of work they have going on right now. But our Fairview swale reclamation was completed in October, with the south side being completed in August and the north side in October. So you can kind of see that before picture on top and the after picture on the bottom. The after picture, the whole purpose of a swale is to take the water and get it off the road. The majority of it was taken off the road. This was in an extreme rain event, so there is still some pooling there, but this was literally the morning right after the rain. So we think this project was a win, and we hope to continue that through this new fiscal year. For stormwater pipelining, we have 5 areas we plan to line this year. It's roughly 618 total linear feet, and the locations of all 5 projects are viewed there. So we have Tradewind Circle and Country Club Drive in the top left, Leeward Circle top right, River Drive middle left, Gulfview Drive middle right, and then Tequesta Drive on the bottom there. We have found that lining these pipes is the most cost-effective way to extend the useful life. It adds 50 to 60 years of the pipe, so it's much more effective than going in and fully replacing the pipes, especially when those pipes run between property lines like the middle left one and middle right that you see there. The status for this project, we have received 2 quotes. We're waiting at least 1 more. We may have to draw back on some of these projects just based on the pricing, but our goal is to try to complete all 5. And we plan to bring those proposals in December or January. Moving to the more day-to-day operations for our stormwater division. This would include pond inspections, our plans, maps, and GIS, and our Dover Road and Oak Ave stormwater structure repair. So ponds collect the water, majority from streets, so they're very, very important. And so we plan to go into these ponds, inspect the inlets and outlets by having a diver go into the pond, go clear out any debris that may be impeding flow into these ponds. Locations include Fairway North, Bunker Place, Fairway East, Country Club Drive and Palmetto Way, Fairway West and East, and then Gulfview Drive and Fairview West. So all of those locations are pictured there. In most of these locations, you have at least 2, if not 3, inlets and outlets that would be inspected. And we are receiving those quotes, and we'll bring them to council when we have enough of them received. For our stormwater plans, maps, and GIS, this has really been a goal for us over the last couple of fiscal years, but we really want to provide a visual representation of all the projects that we've completed related to stormwater, pipelining, structure installation, and swale regrading or reclamation, and then show where we plan to go in the coming fiscal years. We anticipate this will look something similar to the water main map, which is pictured in the bottom left. Just a good way for us to kind of tell our story over time and see how far we've come. And so the status of that, we have our project layer that was set up by our GIS consultant. That was on September 18th, 2025. And then we have started our work on entering the projects, at least that have been completed, and then we'll work towards entering the ones that are planned. Dover Road and Oak Ave stormwater structure repair. Last fiscal year, one of our staff members was walking their neighborhood and noticed a divot in the road. And so we went out there, we inspected, we actually found this stormwater structure that we didn't know existed because it's so old. So we went in, we made a temporary repair to ensure the safety and that there wasn't any further damage to the road. But with new fiscal year funding, we will be going in and making a more permanent repair, and quotes are underway for that project as well. Transitioning to production, some of the capital projects will be the filter media replacement, reverse osmosis membrane replacement, water treatment plant improvements, water treatment master plan, and Surficial Well 28 design. The filter media replacement, we have 6 filter vessels at the water treatment plant. They're conventional filters. They previously had green sand in them, and then anthracite and sand was added over time. But these filters, the first 4 were installed in 1982, so they're about 43 years old, and then filters 5 and 6 were installed in 88, being 37 years old. And for the most part, the media and internal components in these vessels were all original. So they're pretty old. And so we've gone into the first 2 vessels, which are vessel 4 and 6, and we've completely removed the media. The contractor sandblasted, so you can see those pictures of the sandblasted vessels up top. And what you may notice is in the top left one, there's holes all on the bottom of that vessel. Those aren't supposed to be there. So there's just pitting that happened over time, so the contractor is working to complete some welding repairs on the bottom of the vessel, and then it'll be filled back up with new media, and new internal headers replaced, and then placed back into service, and they'll move on to the next 2. This project, there was a slight delay in the project because the project manager got switched out over time in the very, very beginning, and so they are a little bit behind on the project, but we're working to get them caught back up and back on schedule. Our RO membrane replacement. So at the RO plant, we have 3 treatment trains. They have 160 60-inch membrane elements in each train. Train 2 has the oldest membrane, so that's one in the middle, and they're about 18 years old. Train 1 and 3, they're about 14 years old. Industry standard for membranes is 10, so they've well exceeded their useful life. So we're going in, pulling those out and replacing them with a more industry standard 40-inch membrane element. You can't even find 60-inch elements anymore. So the membrane delivery is actually tomorrow. We're very excited about it, and the contractor is supposed to mobilize on the 17th. Our water treatment plant improvements project, this is SRF loan funded. That agreement was executed by the village on July 1st, and that loan is in the amount of $5.745 million. The remainder of the project will be funded from reserves, and it includes converting our gas ammonia that we have on site for disinfection over to liquid ammonia. It's just much safer. It includes instrumentation and control upgrades, installation of water quality and monitoring equipment, and improvements to our RO system, including VFDs and possibly interstage booster pumps. This is currently out to bid right now. There was a pre-bid meeting held on September 9th, and the original bid opening was scheduled for October 2nd, but it's been extended now to November 14th. When this project was designed a couple years ago, because it had to be designed in advance of the loan, there were some control components that were included that are now outdated. So through the bid process, we've received questions regarding those components and must replace them with more current equipment. So that just extended a little bit of the time, making sure we buttoned everything up and we're getting the best bang for our buck. For water treatment plant master plan, so we completed our testing required under the unregulated contaminant monitoring rule, which is basically the EPA's way of conducting research and occurrence data on unregulated contaminants throughout the US. And through that testing, our results indicated that there was PFAS in our finished water sent to the distribution system that was above the future MCL. If you don't know what PFAS are, they're a hot topic in the water industry. They are per and polyfluoroalkyl chemicals. And they're very, very persistent in the environment. They're hard to break down. And so through reclaimed water, through wastewater, through just kind of everything that's in the air, it gets into the surficial aquifer. And if we don't change our treatment process, we won't be in compliance by 2029/2031 deadline. Right now, the official deadline is 2029, but EPA has come out with a press release that they intend to extend that deadline to 2031. We'll find out, and that should be finalized by spring of 2026. when it comes to our path forward for the water treatment plant, it's really important for us to take a holistic view at what solutions we're going to implement to meet these deadlines. Because there's so many factors that go into play between our raw water, other regulatory components, energy efficiency, the fiscal viability of some of these options. So it's really important for us to kind of look at every single facet and see how they all play together. So this master plan will provide us with both short-term meeting compliance solutions and then long-term compliance plans to make sure we're implementing the best treatment techniques that'll help us today and then 10, 20 years down the road. Kimberly Horn has provided a proposal to complete this master plan, and it will be presented at the November council meeting, including a presentation from them as well. And currently we are working on data collection, so there's a lot of data that has to be collected for this plan. So we've already got a list of what that data is, and our team is working on compiling it to send it over to Kimberly Horn to begin the review process. And then we are evaluating possible opportunities to reduce the current concentration of PFAS. It's a little bit difficult just with some of the projects going on. We don't have a lot of operational flexibility between wells and taking an RO train down. We have 2 vessels down. It's a lot going on for us to kind of move things around, but we are looking at the different opportunities we have. Surficial well 28 design. So we had originally brought Surficial well 19 up for replacement, and I'll go into kind of more of our wells in the following slides, but well 19 is a great producer. It produces good quality water and a lot of it. So instead of taking that well offline, instead we're proposing to move forward with Surficial well 28, which is permitted under our South Florida Water Management District water use permit. However, where it's currently permitted is that little sliver of village-owned property that is surrounded by either houses or FEC property. So it'd be very, very difficult to drill the well there. We'd have to either access it from the north or south and clear about 20 feet of trees on FEC property, and it just doesn't seem like that is a viable option. So instead, we're looking to relocate that well to the water treatment plant in the northwest corner of the property. It's right where our raw water main comes in, so it'd be perfect to connect to the raw water main right there. The only thing with that is we just have to make sure that the water that we would be pulling from would be good for quality and quantity. So we drill a test well. So it's same depth, it's just smaller diameter. It's about 2 inches instead of 4 to 6. We drill down, we do some testing on the water there. We can do PFAS testing, we test the iron, just different things that we would have to deal with treating down the road and make sure it's a viable option for us. So we are receiving and working to get proposals for that. If we do end up drilling the test well there and the water's great, it produces a lot of water, we would go for a permit revision via letter mod with South Florida. It takes approximately 30 days, and it's so close that our hydrogeologist doesn't believe that there'd be any issues with it. And then from this well 28 test well, we would also get a memo from our hydrogeologist on the anticipated depth that the well should be to get the best well that we can get. Moving into some day-to-day operations for production, we have well field performance testing, RO membrane data normalization, water treatment plant perimeter hardening and beautification, portable generator refurbishment, and degasifier cleaning and scrubber media replacement. So we have 10 surficial aquifer wells, which are that shallow aquifer, it's unconfined, and then 4 Floridan aquifer wells. Those are the deeper ones, they're saltier, and we maintain all of those. They're not operated all the time. We kind of rotate them out to prolong the life of those wells. And in FY26, we did budget for the rehab of 2 Floridan wells and 3 surficial wells. However, we've been doing our performance testing and the Floridan wells are doing phenomenal. We don't believe we have to rehab them this year, but we do plan to rehab 3 surficial wells and move forward with that. We are still completing the wellfield testing, and wellfield testing we'll do on a 6-month basis, so we continue to track the progress of those wells. And typically we're going to go in and rehab a well when the capacity has been reduced by 20%. And just touching on those wells, so this is a lot of information, but those are all of our wells. You can't try to make sense of the numbers because they don't make sense sometimes. But the important things to note is production capacity. That's actually the specific capacity of the well, which is the gallons per minute per foot. And so the way that I think about it is if you have a cup of water and you have a straw and you're sucking the water out of the cup, that water level in the cup's gonna go down. But if I put the straw in a pool and I suck water out, it's not gonna go down. We want pools, not cups. So the less water that goes down and the more water we can get out without making it go down is better. So you'll kind of see those, there's a pre-specific capacity, that's a most recent rehab, and then a post. So you can kind of see the impact that rehabs have. They're beneficial to the well, but you can also see that not every well is the same. They have different flow set points, so how much water we can actually pull from the well. And then in the action, there is just some notes about when it was last rehabbed and then what our plan is moving forward. Surficial well 8 is listed as last on, first off. That's that LOFO. And that's just because the well's not a good producer. You can see that in 2024, it was rehabbed. The pre-rehab specific capacity was 7.2. After rehab, it's 24.4, but it's already gone down to 7.9. So it's kind of reverted back to what it was before. There's no point in us investing in rehabs again because we're not going to get any real benefit out of that well. But we do plan to go in and rehab 19. Like I said, it's a great producer, 180 gallons per minute, and the specific capacity is phenomenal. And then we do plan to go in and rehab 23 as well. And one other thing to point out is 26. So you've probably seen on the updates over the past couple of months that 26 is out of service. There's been some air entrainment issues. We tested the air and it's methane. We tested the water and there was high TOC in the water. So these are both indicative of, sorry.
Indicative.
Thank you, indicative of bacteria, and not like a normal bacteria that we would test for. And so we're gonna go in there, we're gonna do an extensive disinfection, and then we're gonna do what's called airlift development to get any of that dead bacteria out of the well, pump it all out, and hopefully that well will come back. Well 28 and RO5 are both proposed. Those are not drilled, but they are included in our water use permit. And the RO wells, we have less of them, but they produce a lot more water, so we don't have to have as many of them as we have for surficial wells. RO membrane data normalization. So our new membranes, they do have a warranty. It's a prorated warranty over 5 years, but it does require the collection and tracking of data like pressures, flows, temperatures, and conductivity. So we're tracking some of this information, but it's in various spreadsheets and it's not all brought together. So we'll be starting to implement a new data tracking spreadsheet. And then with membranes, they're very fidgety. So a decrease in temperature could increase feed pressure, but that's not a direct correlation to the membrane's performance. It's just that the water's colder, so it's harder to push the water through. So when we normalize this data, we're able to see the actual performance of the membrane, and we'll track it over time. We'll review it about once every 2 months and decide if and when we need to clean the membranes. And then obviously if we have any warranty issues, we'll take that data to the membrane supplier and kind of work with them to get some membranes replaced. And we are working on the spreadsheet for that. There's a lot of calculations that have to be done. And then all the meters have been calibrated, verified, or replaced in anticipation for the membrane replacement project. Our water treatment plant perimeter hardening and beautification project. I say project, but it's more of an initiative because it includes a lot of smaller projects that won't be done by one contractor. But some of those include the plant security fence repairs, asphalt maintenance and repair, perimeter fence clearing, RO2 tree removal, backwash pond clearing, gate replacements, and old well abandonment. If you've been out to the water treatment plant recently, you've known there's a lot of overgrowth around the perimeter fence. Last year, there was a portion of the fence that was actually down, so we fixed that. But there's just a lot of security and safety enhancements that we can make. The RO2 tree removal, there are some very tall trees. If they fall, they could easily fall on one of our RO wells, and they are very expensive wells. So it's better to do the tree removal now than have to pay for the well repair down the road. And then you'll see those bottom 2 pictures are old wells that are on the property that never got abandoned. So we'll work to do that because it needs to be done. And right now we are coordinating the gate access and control requirements and install with the IT department. We're going to try to go more towards the badge access instead of right now it's like a garage door clicker. It's not really secure. And then we are receiving quotes for all the other items. Portable generator refurbishment. So we have 3 portable generators that the utilities owns and maintains. We have the Whisper Watt 100 kW. The purchase year for that, it's unknown to me but we are working to find out what it is. The Godwin 200 kW was purchased in 2013, and then the Winco 200 kW was purchased in 1988, which is our oldest portable generator. These generators are super, super critical pieces of equipment because they power the wells so that we have water during storms. Without them, we would not be able to produce any water during a storm. And so the industry standard useful life of a portable generator is only 10 years, so they've well exceeded their useful life. We have this year replaced all the tires on the trailers for all 3 of them. The Godwin trailer is set for refurbishment this year, so we are receiving quotes for that. And then the Winco, it is the oldest one, so we plan to schedule that for replacement in the coming fiscal years. Degasifier cleaning and scrubber media replacement. So degasifiers are used as post-treatment to our RO membranes. RO membranes, they take out a lot of insolubles, but they don't take out gas, including hydrogen sulfide. And so once the water goes through the membranes and we have to permeate, we have to strip that H2S from the water. So it's put in these towers called degasifiers. There's media inside these towers, which looks like that ball in the lower left-hand corner. So that's all inside of there. It trickles over the balls to increase the surface area. Air is blown upwards through the tower, stripping the H2S from the water. And so then the water falls down into a clear well. And then that air goes to our scrubbers to recondense the H2S in a more concentrated form for disposal. This packing is supposed to be replaced every 5 years and then cleaned once a year. And so our degasifiers are set to be cleaned this year, and then scrubber media is scheduled to be replaced this year. So we are working on getting quotes for that, and we are trying to complete that prior to the full membrane replacement being completed. Moving on to distribution, so capital projects, county line road, water main, and raw water main replacement. It's kind of a production and distribution project, but I just put it with distribution. Our water main 1 Tequesta Drive water main replacement, and our water main 2 Beach Road Phase 2 water main replacement, and fire hydrant replacements. So for county line road, water main, and raw water main replacement, Martin County is replacing the bridge on County Line Road that crosses the North Fork of the Waxahachie River. This project includes the replacement of our 2 mains, which are pictured there, as well as a 12-inch reclaimed water main that is owned by LRD. Because of this, we are kind of combining our projects because it's easier to have one contractor go out there. It's more cost effective, but LRD is managing this project. The current status of this project, it was delayed for a couple of months because of the Martin County right-of-way permit. The design of the project had the bore pits in the sidewalk. They didn't want them in the sidewalk, so we had to kind of work through some hiccups there. But they're back on track now. They're scheduled to mobilize on the 18th of November and then estimated to be complete by June 5th, 2026. Water main 1 Tequesta Drive water main replacement. I'm sure you're all aware of this project. But right now the contractor is working. They've completed a majority of the portion on the west side of the bridge on Tequesta Drive, and then they have moved to directionally drilling on the east portion of Tequesta Drive. And they do plan to bore from Riverside to Dover, and because of this we will have a closure on Wednesday and Thursday this week, just a daytime closure of Dover. And so we'll reroute traffic during the day, but it's not on Tequesta Drive, just on the Dover portion. It's just not an actual road, just the intersection right there. We'll have a minor closure, but we have worked. There will be notices going out on social media, letters to customers that will be impacted, and there will be a message board out. Thank you, Doug. Continuing on, Water Main 2 Beach Road Phase 2. This project is SRF funded. We recently got the executed agreement on October 21st. We will have our kickoff meeting with the engineer on November 19th. Right now, the plan is to bid the project in December with a mobilization in February. We might push that by a month just so that we don't have Water Main 1 and Water Main 2 going on at the same time. Just try to reduce some of that construction. Fire hydrant replacements. So the Utilities Department owns and maintains 630 fire hydrants. Expected useful life is 50 to 100 years. That depends on the environment that they're in. And so we go in and we inspect these fire hydrants. We do fire flow testing. And if an inspection comes back that a hydrant either needs to be repaired or is completely inoperable, it immediately gets scheduled for repairs or replacement. So the replacement Right now, we'll all be dependent on our inspections. We have a third party coming in and doing those inspections that should be completed by December 31st. So we'll move forward with any fire hydrant replacements as soon as we're notified that it's inoperable. Distribution operations, that includes dead end flushing, fire hydrant maintenance, and water main valve exercising. So dead end flushing, we have about 128 dead ends throughout our distribution system, including 53 fire hydrants and 75 blow-offs. We're required to flush these dead ends quarterly. That's a requirement through FDEP. And the standard industry practice is to flush until the chlorine residual is above a 1.0 milligram per liter. However, our internal practices include flushing until it's above 2.0. It's just a better practice. So we'll continue with this quarterly flushing. We have 3 sections, so we'll do 1 each month, so they're done once a quarter. We do plan to transition the documentation of this flushing through our asset management system for better tracking and reporting once we get that system in place. For fire hydrant maintenance, like I said, we've recently contracted with Hydromax. So they'll come out and they will do inspections and fire flow testing of all of our fire hydrants. And they actually have a dashboard which looks like that middle kind of lower picture. So we'll kind of be able to keep track of every hydrant that they're testing, where it's at. As soon as there's any fire hydrant that needs major repairs or replacement, a text is immediately sent to our distribution supervisor. And then a little fun fact is the little blue markers in the road actually indicate where a hydrant is. So at night, if there's a firefighter going out there, they can just shine a light down the road and see where the closest hydrant is. So if any of those are either missing or damaged, they will be replacing those as well. And all of this, like I said, all of that testing should be done by December 31st, 2025. And we do report the fire flow testing to Martin County, our fire department, and Palm Beach County. Water main valve exercising, so we have 1,123 potable water valves in our system. The expected useful life is 30 to 40 years if maintained properly. So maintaining it means to go out and exercise it, close it, and open it back up. This is best done with a valve exerciser, so we recently had purchased one of those. So the guys go out there, they hook it up, and it just opens the valve. It uses a certain amount of torque. It documents how open it was, if there were any issues or any pushback from the valve that require further investigation. And the best practice for that, including AC main, is to not exercise the valve all the way. So any valves that are on AC main will not be closed all the way, just to avoid any damage or shutoffs. Customer service and billing operations, so that's backflow prevention and cross-connection control plan, and our customer outreach efforts. So we took a presentation to the March 31st, 2025 council workshop on options for backflow prevention and cross-connection control to try to increase our compliance. Our current compliance is just over 50% compared to some other municipalities with a moderately established program that have a compliance of 60 to 85%. Our current practice includes for residents that are required to have a backflow that they test once every 2 years and report that to the village, and then non-residential customers with a backflow reporting every year. We are developing a presentation for an upcoming council workshop on what our recommendation is to move forward and to increase that compliance. And then last but definitely not least, one of my favorite parts is the customer outreach efforts. So we are excited to start increasing our customer outreach, including some educational initiatives and programs like the AWWA Drop Savers program, which some of those pictures are on the slide. It's a great program to start educating children on water conservation and the importance of water in the environment and in our lives. We also plan to increase project status transparency and just more education on our day-to-day operations. And right now, we have a meeting scheduled for the Drop Savers coordination on November 19th, and we are continuing coordination of efforts with the clerk's office. That's all I have.
You may give yourself a pat on the back for
That's a
that
lot talking. Thank you, Allison. I'm gonna sip of water. Council, open up for comments or questions.
No, I mean, there's a lot going on. You guys are very, very busy. And it's really, we always, obviously there's always something utilities related in council, but it's cool to see it all in one just big slideshow of everything that's actually going on. So thank you.
Yeah.
No specific questions right now.
Seriously though, pat yourself on the back, because
Yeah.
that was a feat. That was extremely thorough. Thank you. And I know you've taken on a lot recently, so thank you. Thank you for being just really real with us and honest. Going back to the Dover ditch, I don't want to wrap them out, but the youth are very excited about the living shoreline because it'll bring, what's in there. Yeah, so, and not that it's better for the environment. When you talked about swales, I know you guys are attacking some of the swale areas. When you said some of the larger roads, like River and Gulfview, I definitely knew Gulfview's on there. Is that just targeting certain areas that have high flood rates when we have the rains?
Yeah,
Like it's not the full road, right?
No,
Okay.
correct. And it's just the area where the majority of the ponding occurs.
Okay, so we still have some of those like key high flooding. I was just making sure it wasn't the full road because that's a feat.
Yes.
And then what was the other one? Oh, fun fact with the little blue lights. So should those be in the neighborhoods too?
They should be, yes.
Or just main? Okay.
They're not required, but it's just a best practice to have them because it makes it easier to identify.
That's
fires.
interesting. I didn't.
We have them on Dover.
Yes, we don't have them in our neighborhood.
They'll add them.
Wait.
Because that's kind of cool if they're in a rush and you have something burning and you just need to like look for it real quick.
Oh, we had them.
They're not in our neighborhood. No.
Guess not.
Because that's not what they're.
We have them.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I didn't know
No,
that
we're
was
on
for the
Dover.
fact. So thank you for that. But yeah, good job. Thank you.
Great job. On the Dover, to piggyback on the Dover ditch, recently I've heard a lot of just questions like, are we doing, I know it's expensive and I've explained the long process to get to where we are on the western side of Riverside, but do we plan on doing the rest of it? Because I hear from the people that live on it, they said it's just, that's where the problems really exist.
Yeah, there was conceptual talks about a phase 2 and phase 3. Like mentioned, it is jointly owned by the village and the town, and we haven't even talked about design for those future phases. But the real goal is to evaluate the effectiveness of this living shoreline, how it looks, and
Gotcha.
majority of the stabilization on the banks was the biggest concern, and I'm sure it's a concern down the rest of the canal. So once we look at that, make sure it's working good, everything's good, we'll continue with design further down and just funding as well as the
And
challenge.
my last question, maybe for Jeremy or both of you, the well motors, the well pumps, was that our old, and we just replaced the tires on them, the well generators? Are those on the vehicle replacement program? Can we look to add those? Because it seems like it's a pretty big number, right? I mean, those are, if they're powering all our wells, it's a pretty expensive piece of equipment, right?
They are expensive, yes.
So maybe something we consider.
We can figure out a replacement plan. I don't know about specifically I'll talk to you.
Because that's more vehicle.
I hear you, but we'll put them on some kind of plan.
Okay, awesome. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
2 quick questions. On the water treatment master plan, are any of the projects that we have underway right now at risk of having to be redone to come into compliance with PFAS?
No. There could be more optimal ways of operating. So like the membranes that we're putting in, they're 400 square inch membranes. We could go to a 440 square inch that could get more water, but that's a very long-term type of goal. For right now, for us to get to the compliance deadline, we would be implementing a solution that would be short-term, and short-term I mean 5 to 7 years. All of these would have had to happen anyways, and they will get us to the ability to implement longer-term solutions. So there's nothing that we're doing right now that is a waste or would be changed necessarily.
Okay, I know the operational standpoint makes sense because you guys do have components down because there's so many projects going on, but I just want to make sure we've thought through that we're not spending a bunch of money on something that might need replaced in like 5 or 7 years, which is well before probably the end of its useful life.
Yeah, for the membranes, the projected useful life is 10 years. We wouldn't, if we were to implement a new type of membrane, that would be farther down the road than 10 years. Just because when you start talking about changing equipment out and the permitting process for that, it just extends it with construction time and then funding. So all of these would have to happen to get us through this period of this transition period anyways.
Okay. And I'm excited to see the backflow item come back to us. I think I've been asking about that compliance since I've got on council, and maybe Councilmember Brandon asked pre-me. it's been a long time coming. I would really like to see that something be brought over the finish line and see those compliance percentages go up. Again, maybe it's probably lower on the totem pole because of all the other projects. But at the end of the day, if you start having backflow issues and there's contamination, I mean, that affects a lot of people. So thank you for bringing that. I don't know if you said exactly one, but I'm excited to see that again. And like I said, hopefully start to see those percentages start to come up for compliance. This might be more of a Jeremy question, the County Line Road bridge replacement. Do we know when the closure is actually happening? And I can't remember, I think it was someone from Martin County, I can't remember the group, but they presented to us a while ago. It'd be great to get like an updated presentation.
I think they have an update, don't
For the actual replacement of our mains, we have an updated schedule, but Martin County's kind of been waiting for us. So as soon as our project's done or we're out of the way enough, they'll be moving forward. So it'll be starting at least by that June date. Last time I talked to Martin County, maybe 2 weeks ago, when they were trying to get more information on our schedule, they were trying to kick it off in January. We won't be out of the way in time for that, so they're pushing it to, I think, February or March.
Okay, if you could have that team come back and present, just because obviously it's gotten delayed, and I think we should be prepared to send out some public messaging on the, again, it's not utilities for the actual closure, but made me think of that. Okay, great, thank you so much for the presentation. Any public comment? Oh, okay. All right, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Russians, kids.
Yeah. Order for you. Pass that to us. Oh, Mayor, please. At least we can do it in public.
Good night, everybody.